The movie opens with police cars. In one of the vehicles, a criminal sits alongside a female police officer named Hel. She observes that the criminal appears confused and nervous. Consequently, she instructs the car to pull over by the side of the road and removes the covering from the criminal's face. Trying to console him, she engages in conversation and assures him that nothing untoward will occur. Once she senses that the boy is no longer anxious, she reports that they can resume their journey to the court. Upon their arrival at the court, journalists and citizens await them. One citizen attempts to approach the police car, but the police swiftly intervene, instructing him to leave. Hel endeavors to shield the fugitive from reaching the court, but a sudden gunshot to the fugitive's head results in his immediate demise. In the detention cell, another individual is stirred awake by the commotion. He's a prisoner, and he can be seen going about his daily activities in the prison, waking up early and heading to the field. While engrossed in a game of chess, he notices a group of prisoners bothering another inmate. Initially, he ignores it, but eventually, he intervenes, inviting the bullied prisoner to join him in a game of chess. Both of them proceed to the chess table, and the man named Zaid counsels the young prisoner to adhere to the prison rules for his safety. When the young man inquires about anyone waiting for him outside, Zaid doesn't provide a direct answer but encourages him to persist in playing chess. Later in the evening, Zaid sits down to craft a paper bird. On his desk, there is a picture of a young boy named Noah. The warden informs him that his father is visiting, but it turns out to be Hel. She inquires if he is familiar with Mutter, the leader of the gang recruiting young boys. Zaid claims ignorance and questions why she is asking. She reveals her intention to halt Mutter's activities and proposes a deal. If he infiltrates Mutter's gang successfully, the police will release him. However, he refrains from responding to her offer and mentions the shooting in front of the court, expressing how she lost the young man. She questions whether he desires a normal life like before and how much longer he will miss living with his son, Noah. Without answering, he stands up and returns to his cell, where he writes a birthday letter to Noah but chooses not to send it. Opting to sleep instead, he is awakened in the middle of the night by the warden, who invites him to move to a different prison cell. In the new cell, he notices the bird-shaped paper he made and realizes he has been transferred for a special mission. The following morning, he is surprised when a group of prisoners enters his room. They take down a picture of his son that is on the wall, making fun of whether Noah is a girl or a boy. Zaid gets upset when they mock the picture and ends up hitting one of the prisoners, and the gang eventually leaves. At night, he tries to call Noah to wish him a happy birthday, but Noah refuses to answer the call. The next morning, Hel visits Zaid in his prison cell. He tells her that if he agrees to the mission, he wants his life back the way it used to be. She appears pleased with his response and shows him a parole letter she has prepared. He could be free once he completes this mission. She explains how he can infiltrate the gang led by Mutter through a deal, but he has to earn their trust first. One day, Zaid takes action. He confronts and fights a gangster in the prison yard. The next day, he is asked to meet with a person. Zaid and Adil discuss what happened the day before when Zaid got into a fight. He realizes Adil holds influence in the prison, but he mentions having good relationships with some of the guards, and they decide to work together. Zaid receives an order to confront a young man from the area, the son of a prostitute, held in cell 157. Zaid walks with Adil and his group to meet the young man in cell 157. To his surprise, it was the same young man he had played chess with. Afterward, he is released from prison. He goes to a tall building and asks a young man named Diddy for directions to the 23rd floor. This building is where Zaid lived. After taking in some fresh air on his balcony, he goes to an exhibition and meets Stein, who works there. Zaid congratulated her on her pregnancy. However, she didn't expect him to be free and didn't feel ready to see him. They argue, but Zaid is determined to see his son. Eventually, Stein allows Zaid to watch Noah practice soccer. As night falls, Zaid receives a call from Jimmy, who asks him to meet outside the building. He gets into a car, but suddenly, Jimmy stops the car, and someone grabs Zaid's neck from behind. Jimmy explains that he will be keeping an eye on him because he knows that Zaid is a doctor. He also questions Zaid's intentions with Adil and his group. After this encounter, Zaid is dropped off in the middle of the road. The next day, Zaid meets Hel at an exhibition. He informs her about Jimmy, who will keep watching him. Hel provides Zaid with a microphone and GPS device to gather information about Mutter. She assures him that only they know about this plan, and the police will believe Zaid is part of the gang. At nightfall, Jimmy picks up Zaid and brings him to a location. Before entering the room, Jimmy checks Zaid's belongings. Inside the room are Mutter and his group. Zaid is instructed to perform surgery on an injured person. He requests everyone to leave the room for a peaceful operation. Jimmy is unhappy about this, but Mutter orders his men to exit as per request. However, Mutter wants to stay in the room because the injured person is his brother Nashar. Zaid succeeds in removing a bullet from Nashar's lung. The next morning, Zaid visits Stein's house with the hope of meeting his son. Unfortunately, Noah doesn't recognize him. Even so, Zaid remains hopeful. He is welcomed as a guest by Noah, and Zaid invites him to play in the room. Later, Zaid joins Mutter and his group. They track down the man who had injured Nashar. Then, they go to their base. Zaid is surprised to find Diddy there, who happens to be his neighbor. Zaid cautiously approaches him and learns that Diddy is a spy working for Mutter, keeping an eye on Zaid's apartment. Zaid is assigned the task of picking up goods at the port. Before leaving, he places a tracking device in Mutter's car. When they reach the port, Jimmy warns Zaid to complete the task correctly and not mess things up. The goods supposed to be handed over to Mutter are stolen by Boba's men, who had also injured Nashar. Zaid heads to Boba's camp to retrieve the goods. Initially, Boba is reluctant to give them up, but Zaid manages to take them back. He returns to Mutter's camp and informs him about the situation, explaining that Boba had taken the drugs, but he managed to recover them. At first, Mutter is skeptical of Zaid's words, but Zaid eventually convinces him. Zaid even suggests that he can meet Boba at the club, as Boba is in a bad mood. The next day, Zaid meets Noah and Stein on the beach. They have a casual conversation. Amid their talk, Noah wonders if Zaid would have to return to prison or if he can stay there. Zaid replies that he intends to stay. Noah asks what he had done to end up in prison, and Zaid falls silent. After meeting Noah, Zaid goes to the library and gives Hell a voice recording. This recording contains voice messages from the last 14 days when he was with Mutter and his group. For a moment, Zaid reflects on his actions with Mutter and then tells Hell that Noah asked about the crime that had put him in prison. She reassures that one day, Noah will come to know that his father played a role in stopping the crime. Her explanation eases Zaid's concerns a bit. One evening, Zaid meets with Mutter, who instructs him to join Nashar and Diddy for a bigger job. They stop at a shop and chat for a while in the car. From a distance, Hell is spying on Zaid. A few minutes later, two men fire at Zaid's car. Luckily, Zaid and Diddy manage to escape, but Nashar loses his life. They rush into the shop they had visited earlier, and two gangsters follow them. Hell also arrives to help Zaid, who decides to let Diddy leave the shop, and he re-enters to confront the gangsters. To his surprise, he finds Hell inside. While they are talking, Diddy sees them but pretends not to notice. Zaid and Diddy return to Mutter's camp, and Zaid overhears one of Mutter's men mentioning a GPS attached to Mutter's car. They sense something is amiss when they hear police approaching the scene. Mutter prevents Zaid from leaving, inviting him to a garage-shaped building. Inside, Mutter tortures a man named Racine, suspecting he might have talked to Boba about a drug delivery. Racine admits to the accusation but denies placing the tracking device in Mutter's car, and the men take Racine away. Zaid meets Hell in the library and confesses to her about the incident with Racine. He feels guilty about it and wants to quit the mission, but Hell firmly tells him quitting will leave him vulnerable to Mutter's reach. The next day, Mutter meets Diddy and inquires about the incident near the supermarket when Nashar was shot. Diddy initially conceals the truth but later reveals that Zaid met a policewoman who didn't arrest him. Mutter is left speechless. Zaid spends time with Noah at an amusement park, enjoying games and conversations. On their way home, they are shot at by another car, but Zaid manages to escape and drops Noah off at Stein's house. He asks Noah to remember that he loves him, then hugs and kisses him. Upon returning to his apartment, Zaid finds it in disarray, and Noah's picture is missing. He realizes it is Mutter's doing and informs Hell. However, Mutter's men capture him shortly after. Mutter takes him to the place where Racine had been tortured and then announces his intention to visit Noah and Stein. Zaid begs him not to harm them, and Jimmy prepares to beat Zaid. But Zaid manages to free himself, defeating Jimmy and the other men. He goes to Mutter's headquarters, determined to confront him, but first, he has to face Mutter's men. When he finally reaches Mutter's room, he finds Diddy and some young people there. Mutter shoots Zaid in the leg. Unexpectedly, Diddy turns against Mutter and aims a gun at him. Zaid manages to shoot Mutter to his death. Diddy helps Zaid, and they leave the camp. Zaid sends Diddy home, and he stares at a photo of Noah for a moment. Within minutes, he hears police sirens approaching Mutter's headquarters. The end. Thank you for watching.